Welcome on in, everybody. This is Three Bold Takes. Freddie, Chase, and Quinn, man, getting into some off-season content. And what's a better way to start the off-season than telling you how bad your team sucks? We're looking at teams all off-season long, just seeing what they did right, what they did wrong, and most importantly, how bad they sucked. And the first one, how can we not start with Michigan? One of my all-time hater favorites from the off-season. Kind of called that they weren't going to be as good as they were last year, but anybody with a brain could have seen that one coming. So Michigan, why do they suck? Freddie, can you tell us?
Well, I think this one is pretty obvious here. They lost a butt ton after winning the national championship, head coach included, quarterbacks. I mean, you name it, they lost it. And even though Sharon Moore came in and he had already had coaching experience, being an interim and still working for Michigan, it's just hard to follow up a national title. It just is, man, especially when your team is so old, like Michigan was in 2024. Had a ton of senior talent, ton of juniors that ended up going pro. But when you look at their actual season, right, this is kind of where I wanted to go with this. So they finished 8-5 on the year. Obviously, we know they got the bowl win against Alabama, 19-13, an ugly affair for both of them. It was piss and rain for the first half. There was a lot of stuff in that game, but you know, Chase, you said this before we recorded. They only played 4 away games. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't seem normal. Typically, it's close to a 50-50 split. Um, but that just means that next year they're going to have a lot more away games. So this was the year that they probably could have capitalized on their home field advantage a little bit more than they did. I was also extremely disappointed in their run game. I mean, you look at Donovan Edwards, he was on the cover of College Football 2025 expecting to be this Heisman, hopeful, and it just was a disappointing year. Now, I know they had a lot of quarterback issues. They had offensive line issues throughout the year as well. So maybe it's not all on him, but at the end of the day, when you're expected to perform and you don't, you're underwhelming. You suck. Quinn, go ahead. I know you want to say something.
I was going to say that I don't think this team qualifies for you suck territory. I'm going to be completely honest with you. No, straight up, like you've got this shocked face look on your face, but we all got on here in the preseason and said this was going to be a 6 to 8 win team in the regular season when we were predicting their regular season. They went 7-5. In that 7-5, it includes a massive upset victory over your biggest rival, and then you get a bowl game win over one of the, if not the most recognizable brand in college football. Ending your season on a super positive note and doing it with a young backup defense, showing that defensive talent that they had all season, because they were one of the better defenses in the entire country, despite the record that they had. Uh, Basically, in a lot of ways, they were kind of similar to Iowa from a couple years ago, except a slightly better offense and a harder schedule than what Iowa usually had. Um, I think there's a lot of optimism around this team going forward because of how you ended this year, because you battled so hard at the back end, and frankly, kind of achieved exactly where we thought it would be. It's hard for me to get on here and say that they sucked when we kind of saw that this was going to happen, and then it ended on such a positive note. So really, if anything, this team was exactly who we thought they were, and then they just ended on a really high note, giving you some optimism for 2025.
Yeah, and real quick before you go, Chase, I want to clarify for those of you that this is going to be a series that we're doing throughout the whole off season. Blank team sucks, and mainly it's just a 2024 recap, what they did, where they lost, why they aren't good, but why they could be good, anything like that. So for those of you watching who's upset at the title of the video, just know that we're not saying that Michigan sucks entirely. It's just a series, unless Chase decides to say that Michigan sucks, at which point that varies.
Well,
You
that's
know,
just Chase talking about Big Ten football teams. Let's be real.
it's true. They do. Big Ten just doesn't move me at all. And you know what? I'll be impartial to Michigan. They had a decent season. I said they were going to be a 6-win team. I was close. Who would have guessed that they would upset Ohio State for the fourth year in a row? Anyway, That was the big thing. But I like what Quinn mentioned. They did end on an extremely high note. Not only did you beat Ohio State, but you go get into a bowl game with the team you literally played in the last calendar year for a chance at the national championship, and then re-beat them again. And it's just in Alabama, and so it's they ended on an extremely high note. However, let's look at some of the things that they had going on. They had 8 home games. Eight. That's not going to be every year. They performed extremely poorly on the road. They lost to Washington. They lost to Indiana, who, it wasn't a bad score, but also Indiana was great on defense, not great offensively, definitely towards the end of the season. So, and then lost to Texas in a blowout early on in the year. My biggest thing with Michigan, you can look at their schedule, you can look at their stats. I like the Donovan Edwards mention, but my biggest thing is how Sharon Moore operated in the first half of the season. It seemed like he came in and wanted to absolutely reinvent the wheel on offense. You change quarterbacks immediately to a walk-on who performed extremely poorly, and then Donovan Edwards lost out of the rotation, like we've already mentioned. And so it was like, okay, it seemed like you had Alex Orji who was going to step in and be your quarterback for the foreseeable future. And then for some reason, it's going to be Davis Warren, who is throwing 3 to 4 to 5 picks a game. And you didn't really figure that out until midway in the season when they started picking up some wins. So that was my biggest thing is Sharon Moore kind of like, I want this to be my team, and it's not going to be what Jim Harbaugh left. It's going to be what Sharon Moore is making. And he made some very dumb decisions early on. And I'm not thinking that they could compete with Texas in that game. However, Davis Warren looked absolutely horrible in that one. I remember that game. I think he threw 2 to 3 interceptions and just absolutely threw them out of the game. And then they couldn't run the ball at all. So their identity that you had stacked for the entire last year or last several years and then won a championship on being disgusting in the trenches and then absolutely running down your opponent's throats, you abandoned that extremely early in the season. And I think that's what cost you a couple games and then gave you a couple heart attacks against like Arkansas State and USC and Minnesota. So I think that was my biggest thing is why I didn't appreciate Michigan so much early in the season and why I thought they sucked. However, they found a rhythm in the middle of the season. If you would have upset Indiana, I might give you a B minus here, a B plus even. But then you end on an Ohio State, Alabama upset win. So overall, they, again, like Quinn mentioned, kind of what we saw coming. Everybody with a brain bigger than a walnut knew that they were not going to repeat as national champions or even be in the new 12-team playoff. We all knew that. If you thought that, you're either a Michigan fan or a brain the size of a pecan. So, guys,
What's that comparison between a pecan and a walnut? What's
I think
that?
walnut's like that big, and like a pecan is like it's like that big. So, have you ever seen the movie Land of the Lost? When they make fun of the dinosaur, and they're like, "He's got a brain the size of a walnut," and then he throws like a huge walnut like right in front of their thing. That was my thinking right there. So, Land of the Lost. You haven't watched it? Go watch it. Will Ferrell. And not James C. Riley, whatever the other guy's name is. Anyway, but yeah, so overall, Michigan, your average year. Can you build on it, or do you regress next year if you get like a 6 home game, 6 away game schedule? That'll be interesting to see next year. Guys, anything else about how bad Michigan sucks? I could talk for hours, honestly. I just don't want to take up your time.
I'm good.
Okay. So, guys, we're not going to talk about how bad Michigan sucks anymore. For 3 Bold Takes, it's been Freddie, Chase, and Quinn. We've absolutely loved doing this one. We're going to do more. We're going to do all your favorite teams. Ohio State's probably going to get in the fire. Alabama's going to be throwing in. We got everybody coming. So, if you're upset by this one, cannot wait for you to watch the other ones and hate watch with us, guys. For 3 Bold Takes, it's all of us. We had so much fun. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with your grandmother, your dog, your friend, your goldfish. Doesn't matter. Just share it with them. We will see you guys next time.